This is lesson 59, subtracting a fraction from 1. So first we need to figure out what 1 is. So one whole thing. A fraction means that I have, let's see, 1 out of 2 pieces, right? So I have a half of a thing, a half of a whole thing, 1 out of 2. Means I cut it into 2 pieces and I took one of them. Well, here I have 2 out of 2 pieces. So even if I cut it, I still have all the pieces, so it's a whole thing, right? If I cut an apple in half and I take both of them, I still have a whole apple. It's a cut apple, but it's still a whole apple. 3 over 3 is 1. 99 over 99 is 1. 1 million over 1 million is 1. One whole thing. I put a million cuts in something, but then I took a million pieces. I still have one whole thing that's cut up into a bunch of pieces. All right, here's a silly one. If I have 1 leg over 1 cow, that means I only have 1 leg. However, if I have a cow over a cow, that means I have 1 whole cow, right? 1 cow out of 1 cow? Silly, huh? Okay, so example 1 says, write a fraction equal to 1 that has a denominator of 4. So I know I want something fourths that equals 1. Well, let's cut a pie into 4 pieces, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So 4 out of 4 equals 1, right? So there's my numerator is 4 if I want it to equal 1. And then they ask you, well, what does 5/4 mean? 5/4 means I have 1 whole and then another fourth. So 5/4 equals 1 and 1/4, right? Because 4/4 plus 1/4 equals 5/4. Okay. Example 2 says, for a Saturday night snack, Bailey and her friends cooked 2 identical pizzas. Bailey ate 1/4 of one pizza, and her friends ate 3/4 of the other pizza. What amount of pizza was totally eaten? So if Bailey ate 1/4 and her friends ate 3/4, so there's 1. Can I put that 1/4 right over here? And then I'd have 1 whole. So remember, when you're adding fractions, you just add the numerators. You don't add the denominators. So 1/4 plus 3/4 is 4/4. So they ate 1 pizza, and then they basically had 1 pizza that was cut up into 4 pieces left over, didn't they? Make sense? Okay, example 3, compare 4 3/3 to 5. So they're looking which is greater, which is less than or equal to. So 4 3/3. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I've got 3/3. So I've got that one, and that one. And then I've got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're exactly the same, except for this one has some cuts in it, right? Because 3/3 is the same as 1. So 4 plus 1 is the same as 5, so they're equal. Why is 4 4/3 greater? Oop, that's a third. It's not a very good third. Okay, so that's a little bit more. You have an extra third of a piece of pizza, because then you have 4 1/3 plus 3/3. So 4 4/3, and then 5. So you've got a little bit more, that extra third, right? Okay, example 4. One morning during summer vacation, Mason spent 1.5 hours cleaning out the garage, and his sister Alyssa spent 1.5 hours doing yard work. I think I'd rather do the garage. What would you do? How many hours did Mason and Alyssa work that morning all together? So Mason worked 1.5, Alyssa worked 1.5 hours. When I'm adding mixed numbers, I like to do them vertically, and I like to keep them in columns. Fractions on one side, whole numbers on the other side. So I drew my little column divider. And then I'm going to add. So what's 1/2 plus 1/2? 2 halves. And then 1 plus 1 is 2. So I have 2 and 2 halves. But what's that the same thing as? 3 hours, right? And always make sure you put your label on there. Does that make sense? And I know that if I just add 1 and 1, I get 2, and a half is 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. Example 5, Javon baked a blueberry pie. After dinner, he and his family ate 1/3 of the pie for dessert. What fraction of the pie was not eaten? So if they ate this green part, what's left over? So it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, right? So that's gone. 2/3 are left, right? So that's harder to do, but what if I wrote it this way? Because 1 and 3/3 are the same thing. Oops, that should be a 1. Pretend like that's a 1 here. We'll change it that way. 3/3 minus 1/3 equals 2/3, and I can see that when I draw my picture. Sometimes with fractions, pictures kind of help you visualize things. You might be past that, you might not need it, and you do not have to do that at all. But sometimes if you're struggling a bit, draw it out, okay? That is it for lesson 59. Again, not too hard. Just remember, anything over itself is the same thing as 1. Okay, good luck.